Welcome to Anime in Theory, where in this video we will be going over and breaking down the Chainsaw Man iceberg chart. If you don't know what an iceberg chart is, imagine that one photo you always see of an iceberg that shows how little you see on the surface and how much more there is the further down you go. Essentially, more well-known topics and events about Chainsaw Man will be present at higher levels, but the deeper down we go, the more obscure and lesser known things will be revealed. If you're wondering what Chainsaw Man is, why did you click on the video? Before we get into the iceberg, I just want to say that I was actually the one who made this iceberg chart. I kept trying to find a good one on Reddit or Twitter, but most of them were super basic or weren't interesting. So I decided to kind of make up my own by typing a bunch of random stuff that I think would be on here and a lot of newer fans of the series might not know. This took a lot of effort to put together, with a script almost 44 pages long and editing that I can only imagine will leave me bedridden. So if you like this stuff, subscribe down below or like the video if you wouldn't mind. Without further ado, let's get into the Chainsaw Man iceberg chart. Level 1, Yakuza Devil Hunter. For level 1, I just kind of created it as a filler tier because, come on, nobody watches these videos for level 1. You want to get to the more interesting stuff down below. I created this level to represent the perspective of somebody who has either read the CSM manga, watched the anime, or even just heard about it from friends. Anyways, let's move on deeper into tier 2. Level 2, Civilian Devil Hunter. Fire Punch. Fire Punch was Tetsuya Fujimoto's, the author of Chainsaw Man's, first ever serialized manga. It started serialization all the way back in 2016, before ending in 2018, clocking in at about 83 chapters. It follows Agni, a young boy who lives in a post-apocalyptic world that has been frozen over due to a new ice age. Agni has the special ability of being able to instantly regenerate any and all damage to his body, making for some awesome battles, but also some amazing storytelling. If you like Chainsaw Man, I would highly recommend giving this one a read. Movie inspirations. Tetsuya Fujimoto is a huge film nerd, often stating Western movies as his main creative inspiration. It shows just how very different all of his works are from regular manga, with his pacing and camera perspective playing a huge part. You can find countless references to old movies scattered all throughout Chainsaw Man. Heck, just take a look at the opening for the anime. Kobeni's car. Chainsaw Man held its first ever popularity poll in 2020, in which fans of the series got to vote on their favorite CSM characters by answering a simple survey. The results were revealed in the 26th issue of Shonen Jump Weekly, and they were what you would have expected, with Reize taking the top spot, and others like Makima, Denji, Aki, Power, and etc. ranking below her one by one. The strange thing about this poll though was Kobeni's placement, because she ranked at number 8, while her car ranked at number 7. Yes, you heard that right, Kobeni's car ranked higher than her in a popularity poll. This caused a huge outpour of memes surrounding Kobeni's car that went on for a very long time and were actually quite funny. 1997. This entry refers to the fact that a lot of people don't seem to realize that Chainsaw Man actually takes place over 2 decades ago in 1997. I don't blame them for not realizing, because I was also shocked when I found out, since it seems like a story that takes place in the modern day. Still, nonetheless, in Chapter 76, it says that the second Gun Devil attack took place on September 12, 1997. Past one-shots. Even before Fujimoto began his serialized work, he released a lot of one-shots for various publishers, with the most recent being Goodbye Eri in 2022, right before the serialization of CSM Part 2. Most of them have been released in English by Viz Media in the Before Chainsaw Man collections, though there are a few that are a special case, but we'll talk about them later in a video. If you haven't, I would highly recommend reading them, since they're all now easily accessible in English. Kobeni's Contract. In Chapter 20, when all of Special Division 4 is eating at a restaurant, they go around stating what devils they have a contract with. When it's Kobeni's turn, she doesn't say what hers is, stating that it's a secret, and since then, it has never been revealed. This has led to a lot of speculation online as to what devil she has a contract with. There have been a lot of wild rumors and theories, from something as simple as a luck devil to something as large as the death devil. I have a feeling that it has something to do with her almost superhuman-like speed and agility, like a quick devil or a fast devil. Whatever it is, it's done well to keep her alive all this time, but unfortunately, we will most likely never know. Tatsuki Fujimoto levitating. On December 13th, 2021, an alleged video of Tatsuki Fujimoto when he was younger surfaced online of him attempting to levitate. In the video, he stands on something and jumps off before hitting the ground. I'm assuming that his attempt was unsuccessful. It's pretty obvious that this video was recorded a lot longer than a year ago, probably in the late 2000s or the early 2010s. It was found on an old Japanese forum site posted by somebody with the username Nagatoisme, which we'll be talking about a lot later. This video has been shared around and memed a lot over the years. I think it goes to show how goofy Fujimoto can be in his manga and in real life. Japanese hate. The Chainsaw Man anime got into a fair amount of controversy when it first aired, but not for a reason you would think. It's actually due to the director of the anime, Ryu Nakayama, but more on as to why in a later entry. This has led to some random boycotts and petitions for a while, but we still don't know how much people actually hate the CSM anime over there. But I kinda doubt it's a lot of people, just a very vocal minority. Fujimoto Twitter recommendations. Tatsuki Fujimoto has a Twitter account, which we will be talking a lot more about in later entries, but this entry is referring to his most recent facade of where he will recommend things he likes. Like he will tweet, "I watched so-and-so movie today, and I liked it, so I recommend it," or something along those lines. Though it's usually not a movie, but something random, like he will recommend a meal that he ate, an apple from the supermarket, a trailer he saw, or even just going for a walk outside. Woof at convention. Dogs are a huge, not so subtle piece of symbolism in Chainsaw Man, to the point where it's actually become kind of a meme for the series. Specifically before the anime came out. There were a lot of people barking for Makima like Denji does in the series, to the point where it got a little weird and hard to tell who was joking or who wasn't. It kind of peaked at Anime Expo 2022, where there was a panel interviewing some of the MAPPA staff who were working on the CSM anime. There's one instance where Makima is shown on screen and a lot of the audience began to bark. There aren't really any good videos of it since you weren't allowed to record the event if you attended, but from what I've heard, it was very loud barking. JJK to CSM. This entry is referring to the fact that a lot of people tended to compare Jujutsu Kaisen to Chainsaw Man since they share a similar premise with similar themes. A lot of times it's just people who have watched JJK already and are just getting into CSM compare the two. But the farther they get into CSM, the more they realize how far the two diverge in terms of similarity. Part 3 and up. A lot of people have questioned whether or not there will be a Chainsaw Man Part 3, Part 4, Part 5, etc., or if Part 2 will round out the series. I genuinely have no idea if this is the case since Fujimoto is extremely unpredictable and we will never be able to tell what he's thinking. But if I had to guess, I would say that we're getting more parts than just 2, since he's labeled each part as one individual arc, kind of like JoJo's, with Part 1 being called the Public Safety Arc, and Part 2 being called the Academy Arc. Though we have gotten introduced to a lot of things that I assumed Fujimoto would save for later parts, but who knows. Yoshida Death Devil. Since Yoshida has been reintroduced into the manga, there have been a lot of speculation as to what exactly his intentions are and what his past is. Though there's one theory that a lot of people like to share, and that is Yoshida might actually be the final horseman, the Death Devil. There is some evidence to support this, as at the time of writing, he is the first and only character to have mentioned the Death Devil by name. Also, some believe that the Octopus Devil he has a contract with might be related to the Lovecraftian eldritch god, Cthulhu. I'm not really convinced since we don't know enough about Yoshida, and Fujimoto I feel would reference something more biblical, which we'll be talking about in a later entry. Himeno dubline. The Chainsaw Man English dub has been known for not holding back anything whatsoever, while staying very faithful to the manga, even more so than the subs at times. One particular scene in the manga is when Denji and Himeno are in her bed together after the incident where she threw up in his mouth. Himeno asks him if he wants to do it, and Denji asks what she means, and she says, sex. In episode 8 of the dub though, they decided to crank the notch up to 10 and they replaced sex with this line.
Fuck.
This line has been memed to hell and back with good reason, as it's very jarring when you first hear it. It also helps that Caitlin Barr, Himeno's VA, sells the line magnificently. CSM leaked chapter. As you all probably know, Fujimoto likes to take week-long breaks every once in a while, instead choosing to release a chapter every other week before switching back. This apparently caused Shueisha in turn some confusion one time as they accidentally published Chainsaw Man chapter 122 a week before it was supposed to come out. This is a very important chapter in terms of CSM lore, because this is where we get introduced to the Nostradamus prophecy, so there's a lot of confusion with some bad fan translation. Male Wife Aki Scene. In episode 4 of the CSM anime, there is an added scene that was not in the manga of Aki getting ready for his day in extremely well animated fashion. This scene earned Aki the title of Male Wife because he gets ready for the day? I don't know, this was a weird one, specifically with all the thirsty tweets directed at him after. Part 2 Grunge. In the Viz Media and Manga Plus English release of Chainsaw Man Part 2, there is this sort of grit or grunge filter added to the scans. This filter isn't present in the Japanese release of the manga, so it's obviously a creative choice by Viz. There's been a fair amount of debate as to whether this degrades or improves the quality of the manga. Personally though, I prefer it. It gives the manga a unique feel that's kind of hard to find elsewhere. Though Viz has toned it down in recent chapters, it's still somewhat present. Anime Director Petition. This entry refers back to the fact that there is a very vocal group of Japanese fans that do not like the Chainsaw Man anime, specifically because of Ryu Nakayama's direction style. There's an interview that Nakayama did, where he said that he was tired of the cliche anime style. This was why the CSM anime has a much more cinematic feel to it, taking inspiration from the same movies that Fujimoto likes so much. I personally think that this is an ingenious idea that gave Chainsaw Man so much of an identity and made it feel like a breath of fresh air. Apparently the Japanese fans didn't think so, as they were outraged by this interview. So much so that they started a petition to have him replaced and the entire anime redone from scratch with a different director. They would constantly harass him and his staff online. Going as far as to send death threats. I definitely don't think that these people are sane, because if they were, they would know that death threats are not okay whatsoever. At the time of writing, there have been rumors that Nakayama will not be returning to direct Season 2 of CSM, though these are all just rumors, so hopefully it isn't true. Level 3, Private Devil Hunter. Power equals Eric Cartman. Fujimoto has stated in the past that the main influence for Power's character was that of Eric Cartman from South Park. It makes sense because they're both very, very loud and just say whatever comes to their head. Though most people kind of already know this, because it's kind of the unwritten rule that any Chainsaw Man video essay has to mention the fact that Eric Cartman inspired Power. Weekly to Jump Plus. This entry is referring to the fact that Chainsaw Man was originally published in Shonen Jump Weekly up until Part 2, when it transitioned over to Shonen Jump Plus. For those of you who don't know, Shonen Jump Weekly is a physical magazine released in Japan where almost all famous anime/manga were or are published in, such as Dragon Ball, One Piece, Naruto, Bleach, Demon Slayer, etc., etc. The strange thing though is that a lot of these titles are very family friendly and targeted towards young boys around the age of 11 to 16. So it's strange that a manga so mature as Chainsaw Man would get published and be allowed to be as wild as it was in Weekly Jump. Though before the serialization of Part 2, Fujimoto made the switch to Shonen Jump Plus, an entirely online platform in Japan that allows users to read any new series from Weekly Shonen Jump, though the platform has some exclusive series such as Spy X Family, Kaiju no 8, and now CSM. This new publishing format allows Fujimoto to have a lot more freedom, as he can decide his own schedule and take breaks when he needs to. Mappa removing Muscle Devil. In Chapter 2 Chainsaw Man, there's an encounter Denji has with a devil controlling the body of a little girl called the Muscle Devil. In the end, Denji rescues the little girl and brings her back to Makima. If you're scratching your head wondering why you don't remember this ever happening, that might be due to the fact that Mappa omitted this scene from episode 2. Probably since it honestly doesn't really add anything to the story and was just kind of a way for Fujimoto to draw cool action. Fujimoto Twitter roleplay. Fujimoto likes to roleplay aliases online, often to trick people and as a bit of fun, but one of his more notable tricks was on his Twitter. In his tweets, he would pretend to be his non-existent 8-year-old little sister Chainsaw Man superfan, occasionally breaking character when he would get drunk and start posting. This character would get him into some trouble later down the line, but more on that in a later entry. Dennis and Ashley. Dennis and Ashley are the nicknames that the community have given Denji and Asa. It's only used in memes and joking context, not really anything else. Famous assistants. Like all mangaka, Fujimoto has had assistants or apprentices that he trains up to be mangaka while they help him work on his series. Usually they do the more menial tasks like drawing backgrounds. Some of his former assistants have actually made quite the name for themselves. such as Yuji Kaku, mangaka of Hell's Paradise, Yokinobu Tatsu, mangaka of Dandadan, and Tatsuya Endo, mangaka of Spy X Family. CSM and other manga. Believe it or not, there are actually a fair amount of Chainsaw Man references in other series made by authors who are big fans of Chainsaw Man. Such examples include Makima, Denji, and Aki appearing in the background of Call of the Night, Volume 9 of Me and Roboco referencing the CSM Volume 1 cover, and Denji appearing in the background of My Hero Academia. There are a lot more, but they're kind of hard to find nowadays since most of them I had to pull from memory. Christian mythology. Fujimoto references Christian mythology in a lot of his works, everything from paintings to borrowing concepts like the Four Horsemen. A fair amount of references are still yet to be found since it seems like almost every day there's some strange new Twitter post about it. I've always kind of found this strange considering Fujimoto, as far as we know, has never actually mentioned his interest for Christian mythology in interviews, yet he seems to be almost an expert on the subject. Hybrid still alive. At the end of part 1, Makima ends up bringing back all the hybrids shown throughout the series like Katana Man, Reize, Quan Chi, and a few others as brainwashed soldiers in their fight against Denji and Pochita. Pochita ends up kicking their butts and they got knocked out somewhere lying on the ground. The thing is that we don't know what happened to them after Makima died. A lot of people seem to think that they're still out there somewhere roaming around, but I don't really buy it. It seemed to me that the only thing really keeping them alive was Makima's control, so I think once that's gone, their bodies are just kind of lifeless husks. Though they are listed as alive in the CSM fan wiki, which has led to a lot of people to believe that they will come back later in the story. I don't really see this happening because it's not really like Fujimoto to reintroduce old characters. I feel like he'd rather come up with someone entirely new. Buddy Stories. Chainsaw Man Buddy Stories is a light novel written by Sakaku Hishikawa that was released in 2021. It features 3 different stories all centered around different pairs of devil hunting partners. There's one about Denji and Power, Aki and Himeno, and the real kicker though is one about young Kishibe and Quan Chi. We still don't know if it's necessarily canon to the story, but from what I've heard, it doesn't really affect anything. Just some fun little side content, so I guess it technically could be. It'll be getting an English translation soon, so that's when I'll pick it up, and probably a lot of other people will, and finally read it. Makima Arm's Name. This entry is referring to the fact that in Chapter 64, when the Darkness Devil cuts off Special Division 4's arms, they dangle in the air for a bit to spell out the name Makima. Asa is a fiend. A lot of people don't know this, but technically Asa and Yoru's relationship is that of a fiend, not a hybrid. While we don't know the exact details of how a fiend is made, we do know that it requires a devil to inhabit a human corpse. When hybrids are created, devils don't possess a corpse, but instead replace a vital organ. In Denji's case, Pochita replaced his heart, hence bringing him back to life as a hybrid. Though this always requires both parties to agree to a contract. Fiends don't require contracts, since the person is already dead before the devil inhabits them. Honestly, this honestly could just be BS because of Yoru and Asa's special case. The only reason Asa is still alive was because Yoru left half her brain intact so they could swap between each other. Aki name foreshadowing. Fujimoto named Aki after the gun AK-47 as a bit of foreshadowing to when he would turn into the gun fiend. Though he never actually did get an AK-47, as the gun on his arm looks more akin to an M4. References to other series. Not only do other series reference Chainsaw Man, but Chainsaw Man has a fair amount of references to other series as well. We've got Berserk, Devilman, Hunter x Hunter, and of course, JoJo's references. If you want to see all of them, there's a really cool Twitter thread created by Yatrek compiling them all. I'll leave a link in the description. Aldo wasn't Halloweened. Remember the International Assassin arc? Remember those three brothers who were from the US and claimed to be immortal before one of them was killed by Kobeni's car, and the other that Yoshida killed? Well, one of them, named Aldo, might still be alive. He took over the appearance of Kirose and kind of lived as him for a little bit, after both of his brothers had died. It was really strange as Aldo had an entire chapter dedicated to him and his character, then he just kinda sidelined in the final fight. If you're calling me crazy, just take a look at chapter 58. Anyways, after the fight with Santa Claus, a news reporter shows all the people Halloweened, and in the background, Aldo was one of them. A lot of people have also speculated that Aldo was actually just faking it to get out of trouble, which I kind of buy. Though I don't think he'll show up in part 2, but who knows. Anime cast leak. Before the official casting of the Chainsaw Man anime was announced, there were a lot of fake leaks going around of just people making stuff up and lots of news sites kind of running with it. None of it ended up being real, of course, and just a lot of hoaxes for attention. Level 4, Public Safety Devil Hunter. Fujimoto killing art class. In the author comments of Look Back, one of Tatsuya Fujimoto's more recent one-shots, he talked about how when he was younger, he often attended an art class that was primarily consisted of old people, most likely senior citizens just exploring their hobbies. He told himself that if he didn't surpass them all in terms of art skill after 4 years, he would kill them all. Though he decided that it would be too much trouble to live on the run from Japanese authorities for the rest of his life, so he decided to work hard and become a good artist so he didn't have to commit murder. Apparently this was his main motivation for getting into art and drawing manga in the first place. We still don't know if he was joking or not. God/Devil. This entry is referring to the fact that a lot of people think that the final villain of Chainsaw Man will be the God Devil or the Devil. A fair amount of evidence leads up to this. Since the 4 Horsemen seem to be the main antagonists of the series, they must have worked for somebody at some point, and in Christian mythology, they worked for God to bring the end of the world. This has been further strengthened by the recent Nostradamus prophecy, which states that something will rain down from the sky sometime in the future of the series, and most likely will bring the end of the world or kill a lot of people. 9/11. I kind of feel that this one shouldn't be super low on the list, since it's pretty well known that the terrorist attack in the US that awoke the Gun Devil is extremely similar to 9/11. I mean, come on, look at the panel. Chainsaw Man childbirth. This entry is referring to the fact that a lot of people, myself included, think that it's kind of ironic that the series is centered around chainsaws, considering what chainsaws were originally invented for. If you don't know what that was, I'll give you the short and less gross version. Basically, it was to help with childbirth. You can look up exactly what they did on your own time. Fujimoto has also gone on record saying that the chainsaw's real purpose is related to Makima's name. There are 3 kanji symbols in Makima's name, but if you isolate the middle one, it's the kanji for tree. If you cut out that kanji symbol in her name, you're left with 2 that sound out mama or mother. Yoru scars are kanji. We all know the other half of Asa's split personality, Yoru, or formerly the War Devil. There are distinct differences Fujimoto uses to tell the two apart, one of those differences being that Yoru still has the scar that Asa died with. Those scars actually make out the Japanese lettering for the word war. I mean, it makes sense why, so I highly doubt that this is just a coincidence. Fujimoto banned. Remember when I talked about Fujimoto pretending to be his younger sister on Twitter got him in trouble? This is what I was talking about. Around November of 2022, Fujimoto's Twitter account actually ended up getting banned, because Twitter thought that he was actually his non-existent 8-year-old sister, and not just pretending. He had to set up a temporary account to use until the situation was fixed. It was really funny because he just had to keep screaming into a void that he was actually Tatsuya Fujimoto. In order to prove his identity, he posted some early concept art for Chainsaw Man which had never been seen before. It took a while for Fujimoto and his editor to get the account back, since Twitter support apparently refused to help them, though they eventually relented. Since then, Fujimoto hasn't done anything to impersonate an 8-year-old. Power human position. There have been a lot of theories surrounding who Power's body originally belonged to. Remember, Power is the Blood Devil who inhabited a corpse of a young 17 or 18-year-old girl, becoming the Blood Fiend. People have speculated as to how the young girl could have possibly died. Everything from murder to something much worse has been speculated, but to no avail. My theory has always been that Power inhabited the body of some farm girl living in the middle of the countryside who met an untimely demise. There have also been theories that the young girl was actually Meowie's original owner, which is why Meowie warmed up to Power so quickly. Nayuta one-shot. Not many people know this, but Nayuta actually comes from an early Fujimoto one-shot called Yungen no Nayuta. While it's not the same character, nor does it take place in the CSM universe, the two share similarities, being that they are both demon children with strange powers. Yungen no Nayuta is actually a really good one-shot and one of Fujimoto's best, so if you haven't, I would go check it out. Makima VA likes Makima. Tamori Kunosoki is the Japanese voice actor of Makima, and she is pretty much perfect for the role, not only because of her amazing talent as a voice actor, but because she's a massive fan of Chainsaw Man, specifically Makima. Though I have seen mentions online of her owning a shrine or something of the sort dedicated to Makima, but I can't find any official mention of the shrine, so I think that was made up. Shoujo manga. According to Wikipedia, shoujo manga is defined as an editorial category of Japanese comics targeting an audience of adolescent females and young adult women. It basically means that if the Twilight series was a manga, it would be a shoujo. Anyways, a lot of people have jokingly called Chainsaw Man Part 2 a shoujo manga now, with the focus shifting towards Asa being the protagonist and the romantic element between her and Denji. Bill Clinton summoning. Technically, Bill Clinton is an important figure in the CSM universe. In Chapter 75, the US president who makes a contract with the Gun Devil in order to kill Makima looks a lot like Bill Clinton. Also, Chainsaw Man takes place during 1979, and Clinton was in office from 1993 to 2000, so that pretty much seals the deal. Just Listen to the Song. Just Listen to the Song was a collaborative one-shot between Fujimoto and one of his old assistants, Odo Toda. It was published a few days before Part 2 started serialization, with Fujimoto providing the story and Toda doing the artwork. Basically, the point of this one-shot is Fujimoto saying to just sit back and enjoy CSM Part 2, since Part 2 is a dramatic shift from what Part 1 was. Violence Fiend is awry. When Special Division 4 encounters the Darkness Devil in Chapter 65, the Violence Fiend instructs Kobeni to take his mask off, which she does. His face is revealed to be very similar to Arai, Kobeni's old partner who died saving her. It seems that Makima had the Violence Devil inhabit Arai's body, and the mask was used to make sure none of Division 4 recognized him. While this has never been confirmed, it kinda makes sense, considering the Violence Fiend's peaceful nature and his natural friendship with Kobeni. Denji and Pochita Adventure Time. This entry refers to the fact that Fujimoto stated that his main inspiration for Denji and Pochita's relationship was Finn and Jake the Dog's relationship in Adventure Time. I could not tell you if that lines up or not, because I have never seen Adventure Time. Chainsaw Man War Propaganda. We'll talk more about this later, but it seems that the CSM world is stuck in a perpetual Cold War thanks to some alternate history events. This Cold War has expanded to the point where almost every single country in the world is pitted against each other for dominance. This has caused the mass arms race, as every country is trying to acquire parts of the Gun Devil. It's hinted every once in a while that the Japanese government is using Denji and the Chainsaw Devil as leverage against other countries. Also, it seems that Japan has been heavily promoting Chainsaw Man as a figure to the masses to get them to rally behind something and possibly use him as propaganda if war does start, sort of like Captain America during World War II. While this hasn't been confirmed, it makes sense considering the fact that almost all the Japanese media does is hype up Chainsaw Man and never talk about his shortcomings. Samurai Sword. A lot of people don't realize that Katana Man's real name isn't actually Katana Man. This was just a fan name for him that a lot of official sites like Crunchyroll have actually used, but his name in the manga is technically Samurai Sword, though this could just be a translation thing. I'm just gonna call him Katana Man for the time being because I'm used to it and it sounds way cooler. Scooby-Doo. When the anime was airing, Chainsaw Man reached a very strange amount of mainstream media, some we'll be talking about later. One of the lesser known ones was when Cartoon Network posted a picture of Shaggy and Scooby from the Scooby-Doo series having a picnic with Denji. Ukraine Twitter. Another weird Chainsaw Man Twitter crossover has to do with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. On July 31st, 2022, the official Defense of Ukraine Twitter account posted some art of Denji, but they replaced his chainsaws with HIMARS, which are big missile launcher things. It was really strange to see the official Ukrainian military Twitter account post a Chainsaw Man meme as war propaganda. I genuinely don't think that any other anime or manga series has been used in this context. It's kind of funny considering that this invasion will probably be talked about in history books and taught to kids in school. It'll be weird to think that Denji of all people was a part of it. CSM Movie. This entry might age like milk or fine wine depending on when you're watching this. It refers to the constant fake leaks and speculation about a potential Chainsaw Man movie. I honestly think this would be a pretty cool idea and almost an inevitability, considering how intertwined CSM is with movies, and I think it will happen in the future. Who knows, somebody right now might be watching this video after a Chainsaw Man movie has been released. Level 5 Division Captain. Shinhei Lin. Shinhei Lin is Tatsuya Fujimoto's editor that works with him on Chainsaw Man, as well as being the editor for a lot of other Shueisha titles. He always seemed like a pretty down-to-earth dude in my opinion. Oftentimes he's very honest and transparent with the CSM community, while also genuinely seeming like he loves his job. Poop Aki Prank. In Chapter 14, Power and Denji inquire as to whether or not their prank on Aki earlier in the day was making his mood sour. Aki overhears them, shouting that it was far beyond a prank, and Himeno questions what the prank was, but nobody ever answers her. For the longest time, we didn't know what they pulled on Aki, since nobody ever said until the anime aired. Luckily, Fujimoto tweets out his reactions to each episode as they air on Japanese TV. When this scene happened in episode 5, he tweeted that the prank was Denji in power putting poop on his nose. I can definitely see why he would be ticked off after that. Makima coat controversy. A little while ago, there's a Japanese gacha mobile game called Nike, Goddess of Victory, that had a collaboration with Chainsaw Man. Makima was one of the characters added to the game, and for some reason, a lot of players were in uproar that she had a coat on. They apparently said it took away from her overall character charm, I guess. So Nike responded in one of the funniest ways possible, by making it so you had to play the game more or spend money in order to take your coat off. This was a weird situation that Nike kinda tried to stay away from. Fujimoto faced fear. The only time we've ever seen Fujimoto's face is when he did the levitating video, but this was probably when he was like 19 or 20 years old. As of writing, he's in his early 30s, so he probably looks a lot different, meaning that he's never actually revealed what his face looks like. Supposedly, he said he never will because of the amount of death threats he's gotten over the years from some crazy fans after he kills off their favorite character. I kinda just thought that this was him exaggerating or joking like he usually does, but it seems that he's not because his editor, Shinhei Lin, has also said that he advised Fujimoto to never reveal his face either. This has become pretty common recently in the industry as most mangaka like to remain anonymous, and I don't really blame them. Reize Russian song. In chapter 34, when Reize is slowly choking out the dude who tried to attack her at the school, she sings a song that is entirely in Russian. The official translations have left it in Russian, and I honestly kind of prefer it that way. Anyways, the song when translated somewhat resembles the plot of a Russian romance novel called Dearest Mary Jane. In the book, two sisters fall in love with a man, and they both fight over him like a wishbone. It makes sense in the context of the series since both Reize and Makima are fighting over control of Denji. 1080-87. Over the course of Chainsaw Man Part 2, the numbers 1080-87 have appeared in the background a handful of times, usually drawn on the side of buildings or signs. A lot of people thought that this was a hint or symbol, foreshadowing something to come, as there was a lot of debate as to what exactly means. Well, it turns out that it's added in by one of Fujimoto's assistants, Hanashika Toyama, who always puts the number in the backgrounds he draws for fun. We still don't know exactly what it references, but it doesn't seem to be anything lore significant. Makima based off of Fujimoto's type. Makima and pretty much all the other women in Chainsaw Man are based off of Fujimoto's preference in women. By that I mean very controlling or dominative. I don't know what I can say that won't get me in trouble with YouTube, but you get the gist. Tatsuki Fujimoto food song. Along with the video of Fujimoto trying to levitate, there was another video posted to a YouTube channel called Matson, all the way back in February of 2010. The video is Fujimoto singing about his favorite foods with a very crude drawing of Pikachu in the background. Makima Breath of the Stars. Another place that Makima came from was actually a manga in Fujimoto's head. What I mean by that is Fujimoto had his own weekly manga magazine in his head that always had 7 series running at once. He would often cancel one series and replace it with a new idea if it got boring. Apparently this all concluded until the end of middle school, when the manga publishing company in his head somehow went out of business. This left him very sad for a short amount of time, though the one thing to come out of this was Makima, who, as I mentioned before, was a character in a series called Breath of the Stars. According to Fujimoto, Makima is actually the first ever character fully conceptualized, inside and out, for Chainsaw Man. Fujimoto Fish Eating. In the author comments for the second collection of his one-shots, Fujimoto told the story about how when he was 24, he and his girlfriend were living in a small apartment, and one day they ended up getting a pet rice fish. One day it had unfortunately died and he went to throw it in the trash, but his girlfriend wanted him to bury it outside. He didn't really know where to bury it since the ground outside his apartment was too hard to dig. He eventually just left it on the ground, hoping it would decompose. Though when he watched it get covered in ants, he felt bad for the fish all of a sudden and decided to swallow it whole out of love or something. The next day he ended up getting sick because of it, but never told anybody about eating the fish. Apparently the guilt has haunted him ever since, so the first time he ever told anybody about it was this author's comment. I think this takes the cake as the weirdest thing we at least know that he's done. Alternate history, Cold War, and Hawaii. Due to Pochita's ability to erase things from existence, it has caused quite a few events in history to disappear in the Chainsaw Man world, Things like World War II, Nazis, and the atomic bomb were erased, causing a dramatic historical shift from the world we know it as today. This means that the Soviet Union never disbanded and the Cold War is still going strong. It also means that Japan never surrendered to the US in World War II, which means there was never a peace treaty or allied partnership. So Japan is still very much participating in the Cold War against everybody else. It also means that Hawaii was never annexed by the United States, so it's still an independent country. Russian movie. In Chapter 39, when Denji and Makima go to a movie hopping marathon, the last one they watched ended up making both of them cry. I and everybody else had thought that this was something that Fujimoto just came up with, not an actual scene from an actual movie, though a few months ago somebody found the movie. It's an old Russian film about World War II made back in the late 50s called Ballad of a Soldier. It's about a Russian soldier trying to get home to his mother during the war, but misfortune keeps happening, preventing him. If you want to watch it, you can find it all on YouTube, but it is in Russian, so you will have to do a little bit of reading. Fujimoto cosplay. In February of 2023, a video surfaced of somebody cosplaying as Makima recreating the video of Fujimoto levitating. Her attempt is also, unfortunately, unsuccessful. A lot of people for some reason seem to think that this is Fujimoto himself cosplaying as Makima. I don't see why. The cosplayer very much looks to be female and has a very feminine voice. I think that she was just doing it for fun and not intending to impersonate Fujimoto at all. I mean, to be fair, this does sound like something Fujimoto would do, but we talked about it earlier how he doesn't ever plan to reveal his face. Quan Chi age. As far as hybrids go in Chainsaw Man, we know surprisingly little, considering that our main protagonist is one. There are some clues dotted throughout here and there, but they're usually pretty cryptic. One such clue would be Quan Chi, who is the crossbow hybrid. She is known as the very first devil hunter by many, but we don't know what this actually means. It could imply that she was the first to ever be contracted by public safety, or that she's existed for hundreds of years. It's most likely the latter because she doesn't seem to ever age due to her condition as a hybrid. Final level, Public Safety Elder. NagatoIsMe.com. Fujimoto has been known to use the username NagatoIsMe on various Japanese forum sites. As I mentioned earlier, that's how we found the video of him levitating and the video of him singing. Well, it turns out he may have his own website to go with it, a website called nagatoisme.web.fc2.com. This website is pretty old, actually being copyrighted for some strange reason from all the way back in 2011. On top of being really cryptic and strange, it has a bunch of ads as well. It has links to many other websites containing Fujimoto's old drawings and webcomics that I'm surprised nobody else ever talks about. Even just by randomly clicking, I found another video of him singing with the same Pikachu image. I wasn't 100% sure this was even related to Fujimoto until this video because he literally says his own name in the video. There's genuinely so much here that somebody else more fluent in Japanese can explore and piece together. Like I said, I'm shocked that this hasn't been talked about further. Title of Posan Hell. One thing that people have dug up from the Nagato Is Me website is Fujimoto's first ever official one-shot, Title of Posan. The premise of this one-shot is that a post-apocalyptic ice age has seemingly hit the Earth, wiping out all humans except for one little girl that this monster thing discovers. She says only one word, Posan, as she repeats it over and over again. This monster thing travels with her to find out what Posan means, coming across other monsters, asking them for help. You can go read it for yourself if you choose, I won't spoil it. But the main reason people tie it back to CSM is that a lot of people say that Hell looks similar to the setting of Posan. I don't really see why, since the world is kind of in a frozen state, not something grassy with lots of large doors in the sky. Early designs. This entry is referring to the seemingly random concept art or early designs of Chainsaw Man characters that just kind of pop out of blue on the internet. One such instance was one I talked about earlier of Fujimoto having to post concept art to prove that he was real. Prototype chapter. This is a strange one that I've only ever seen mentioned once or twice, but in great detail. Supposedly there is a prototype chapter of Chainsaw Man. When mangaka do prototype chapters, they're mainly used as mock-ups or rough drafts so they can get their ideas down on paper and pitch them to publishers. Every once in a while, I'll see a mention or a random post about a possible Chainsaw Man prototype chapter somewhere on the internet. Usually the person swears up and down that they have seen it, often describing it as something very wildly different to what Chainsaw Man was though. One time I saw something saying that Power had this big scythe that she used to kill the zombie devil. There's another saying that Denji was actually Aki's little brother and they were both hunting the gun devil to avenge their parents. I have a feeling that these people are just making stuff up for attention, as I have never been able to actually find any Chainsaw Man prototype chapter, no matter how hard I dig. I don't think that a prototype chapter actually exists, and if it did, I don't think that it was ever officially released. Still though, that won't stop people from claiming to have seen it. Fujimoto lost one-shots. Unfortunately, 3 of Fujimoto's one-shots before Chainsaw Man and Fire Punch have been lost to time. By that I mean they were never published outside of the magazines or websites they were in, so they're kinda just gone. Every once in a while, a screenshot of one of the covers or pages in the one-shot surfaces as people try to dig for them, but to this day, they are still lost media. The 3 that we have yet to find are Sword of the Revenge, Paper Plane, and Sense of Justice. Who knows, maybe one of these days they will all be found, but that doesn't seem like the near future. Hybrid's true name. In chapter 87, when Makima brings back all the hybrids in her fight against Yoshida, she mentions that they don't actually have a name. Hybrids are just fan names given to them, since the series never states what they're actually called. This is due to the fact that Yoshida was able to erase their names from existence, but not the hybrids themselves from existence. There are a lot of fan theories as to what this name could actually be, but the one that seems to always come back up is Nephilim. Nephilim are creatures from children's mythology that are said to be children born from human and angel parents. This makes sense in the context of Chainsaw Man, since Makima describes hybrids as neither human nor devil, more as something in between. Pixiv Filipino. Pixiv, or Pixiv, whatever you want to say, is kind of the Japanese equivalent to DeviantArt, a website where artists can post their stuff. Supposedly, Tatsuya Fujimoto has his own Pixiv account where he pretends to be a Filipino person studying in Japan. I have no clue as to why he decided to do this, since he doesn't play into the character at all past the description. The art on the account though is pretty cool. Child abuse documentaries. Fujimoto has gone on record before, saying that he based Makima and Denji's relationship off of child abuse documentaries that he's watched. If you couldn't guess, Makima is meant to be the abuser to Denji, the person who has manipulated him to get what she wants both emotionally and sexually. Fujimoto stated that he enjoys documentaries because they show us the lives of people that we don't know at all. Something he noticed in child abuse documentaries is that the victims, even if they are rescued, will always see life differently than other people, because they always carry their past with them like a weight, dragging them down. He wanted to portray that in Denji and all the other Chainsaw Man characters. Girl kicking Fujimoto bike. When Fujimoto was in college, there was a girl that was always rude to him for some reason. One day he found his bike knocked over on the ground, and later the girl admitted to knocking it over. Instead of being angry, he was actually overjoyed because, as I mentioned earlier, he likes very dominative women. Supposedly this moment secured his heart's desire to write all his women like this in his stories, and especially in Chainsaw Man. Black Gutter. Among the Japanese fandom, there is a popular theory called the Black Gutter. It's the idea that all of Chainsaw Man takes place in a time loop, with certain events being slightly different from one another in every loop. It also says that every single page with black gutters instead of white don't indicate flashbacks, but insight into a previous time loop. I haven't seen many other mentions of this other than random Japanese words or Reddit posts that are super vague. They don't really seem to understand the theory in its entirety either though, just bits and pieces. There's a Reddit post claiming that some of the proof behind this theory can be found in chapter 28 when Arai jumps in front of a bullet for Kobeni. The bullet placement is a little inconsistent, though I don't really see this as proof, just some weird thing with the drawing. Power ball kicking. A little while ago there was this popular trend going around where at conventions, people would pay power cosplayers to kick them in the nuts. I genuinely couldn't tell if this was a joke or a weird fetish thing. Luckily, I haven't heard of it happening since then, so thank God. Versus Bocchi the Rock. Our final entry on the list is another odd one, but a long one. In February of 2023, after all the winter season anime finished airing, the rankings came out in terms of physical sales. A lot of people were pointing out the fact that the Bocchi the Rock anime sold 16,000 DVDs, while Chainsaw Man only sold 1,700. While physical sales aren't really an important factor when it comes to estimating success, it does show in a very small way overall popularity, though there are some caveats that I'm sure you're able to put together on your own. This caused a bit of beef between Bocchi fans and CSM fans for a while. Just enjoy what you want to, no matter how popular it is. Well, that concludes our Chainsaw Man Iceberg chart. I've probably left out a few things and tidbits, but if you want to know more on any of these topics, feel free to research them on your own. I know I won't because I am beat. The script for this video is 43 pages long, and I can't even imagine how long it's going to take me to edit this. Anyways, thank you all for watching, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.